Here's 2 years of prompt engineering lessons from my experience using ChatGPT and now deploying AI agents, from automating more than 50% of my own life and then actually doing it for other businesses in multiple departments like operations, customer support, sales, CRM automations, and even creating AI powered ads. In this video, I am going to be sharing 14 prompt engineering lessons from my own experience, and I have also went ahead and researched the guidelines from OpenAI, Google, and Anthropic, the three largest AI giants right now, so that I give you a holistic approach. And each of these lessons are more than 100,000 in worth, and you can use these lessons to create AI agents for yourself, sell it to other businesses, or you can apply for jobs, because as you see, the demand for this is very high right now, and it is going to be increasing in the next 3 to 5 years. Hey everyone, if you're new here, my name is Vaibhav, and we are going to be using a whiteboard style of approach where I will, talk about a lesson and give examples as to how to implement that in actual real life. The first lesson is going to be use AI to write your prompts. Now, you are all thinking this is very straightforward, we all know what this means, but just see the difference what I'm trying to explain. So this is an intense interface and this is a blog writing agent that I have. But let's see what this is. This is basically a research and planning agent. Now, as you see, I gave it some details like the topic, the content, the target audience, the tone, the content type, keywords, author style, word count, and I give it all of that here. And then I give this master prompt or system message. I'll come to what is a system message, but I tell it, you are a blog planning expert who handles research and content strategy. And then I give it task one, analyze the research data, then create content structure, then output requirements. Again, we'll come to what this looks like. I know this looks like very weird right now. And then we have writing style guidelines and the tools to be used and some notes. Now, there is no way I could have written this prompt all by myself before taking out more than 3-4 hours. But with the help of ChatGPT and AI, I did it in less than 20-25 minutes. Now, obviously, this will take refinements and this will take different time amounts for different people, but gives you a good head start. Now, the next one is going to be treat AI like your employee and prompt like an SOP. Now, if I have to, draw a parallel, when you hire a new intern or when you hire a new employee, what do? You give it the SOP of the task, that when you receive this message from client, send that forward to the sales team and then update the marketing team that this has been received so that they can update the marketing material. I'm just making a random example, it doesn't have to be true or not. Now you give that SOP. Same goes for AI. Treat it like an employee and the prompt is like an SOP. So when you're giving the prompt, you have to be very, very specific. So for example, what you can do is write 500 words blog, as you see in the last example, or list of detailed list of product segments. So this is how you define it. Now, if you would have given write a blog post to an employee or to an AI without specifying the word count, they could have created anything from 200 to 1000 words. That's where you need to treat AI like an employee. And if you give it urgency sensical things like this is an urgent report and this will be used for submitting to my boss in the next meeting, which is very important for my promotion. So if you do that to your own employee, you know how hard that person is going to work out. And same thing you have to do with AI. So use emotional or urgency triggers so that they know how important this is to you, and the output generally gets better. Now let me just expand this, and then the next one is going to be keep it concise and clear. Now if I have to just open this research graph, this is basically a research on what is the accuracy of the model versus the input length, which is called tokens in the technical word, and these are different models. So even if I just take, let's say, this one, right, you see that at the start only this model has some increment in accuracy, which is like negligible, but almost all the models that you see here, they have a decrease in accuracy as you start increasing the input length. Now if you see here, if I just take this one, if I have to just take the green line, which is the GPT-4 version, obviously this research will be updated with GPT-5 and other versions, but this is approximately like 97-98 percentage. And if I have to take this line, this is going to be somewhere around 78 percentage. So you see there is almost 20% difference here. Like I can see there's a 20% difference that is coming out for these two different models. Now let us just quickly see that with a real example. So I have going to word counter, and what I've done is given it a prompt which is around 875 words, and this is very repetitive, and this has a lot of redundancy. So let's say if I have to start reading, write a long form blog post, analytical report that explores how AI driven decision systems are reshaping human judgment, trust, and so on, including business, government, and so on. Goal is to not to promote or condemn AI, but to critically examine subtle ways it's influencing how people make choices, evaluate information, and distribute responsibly. Now, this is irrelevant. Like I have already mentioned that quietly reshaping human judgment, trust, and accountability. And this again also is irrelevant. Don't need this. And P should be written in natural, intelligent tone, confident but not arrogant, conversational but not casual, as if you're explaining the issue to a group of thoughtful professionals who understand tech but want clarity. Like natural and intelligent tone, and this confident but this is not need, and then as if you are explaining it to thoughtful professionals, as you would explain to what is thoughtful professionals who understand technology. That's it. We don't need this. Again, avoid exaggerated claims, stay grounded in logic. This is again not needed. We have already said write a intelligent report. Where did we say that? Yeah, P should be written in natural, intelligent tone. So this is clear. And as you see, with just few changes, I have got it to 816 words. Now, as I said, we can use AI's help. So next we are going to do this. We are going to copy this prompt, and then we are going to go back to our ChatGPT tab, and then ask it to make this concise. Make this prompt concise and remove the unnecessary fluff and repeated information or repeated instructions. Now even this part I can remove repeated instructions, eliminate repeated instructions, remove unnecessary fluff. This again not needed. This is good enough. See, we are so verbose in our own language that it takes so much of time, so much of work to get this concise. Now the prompt is written. Let me just go back to our word counter, and then from 816 words, let me just paste it, and it's now 441 words. Now I'm not saying this is the best prompt that is out there, but it can still be modified and made it to come less than 200-300 words. If you see here, we went from around 800, which is around like 1100 tokens, because like one word is around 1.3 tokens, so 800-900 is around 11-1200, so it would have been here. We went from somewhere here, which would be around like 1200 words, around 92% accuracy, to around 441 words, which is around here. So this is around 95, this is around 92. So we just got 3% just by giving AI this task of making it concise. Imagine if you fine tune it even more, you can get it to around 200 words, which will be around 98% accuracy, or 6% improvement, which is absolutely massive at the scale we operate in. The next one is explicitly define the output format. So what I mean by that is you can define it in CSV, you might have heard of it, or XML, or JSON. Now I'll just talk about each of them very quickly. CSV is just defining them in a structured tabular format. So if I have to open this is what date, country, units, and revenue. So date is here, then country USA, units 343, and revenue is 15,461.36, and so on. This is a CSV format. So if you define this in this format, it is very easy for AI to read it, and you can utilize it in other places as well. The next piece is XML. This is again a writing convention. So you can ask to define the output in a particular format. XML is nothing but writing the key in closed brackets at the start, then writing the value, and then writing the key again with a slash mark. If you see here, city in close brackets, then the city value, which is Surrey, and then city again in close brackets along with a slash. That's all XML is. There is no coding that is required. If I have to give the example of JSON, it is in the format of key and value. As you see here, name, family, boss, given big, email is here. So how it follows is it follows a key, and then the value of that key in inverted quotes, followed by a colon in between. I have to give you a practical example. If you see here, this is a JSON format. So what I asked it to do is give the research insights in a JSON format. So key trends, trend number 1, 2, 3. Pain points, pain point 1 or problem 1, problem 2. Popular questions, question 1, question 2, and so on. You will be thinking how this helps. So if you see here, I have this key trends which is separate, 0, 1, 2, pain points is separate, popular questions are separate, statistics are separate, examples are separate, and so on. So I can now actually use this separately as different outputs, versus if I had actually had this in one single big text format, it would have been very difficult for me to define what is examples, what is context, what is sections, what is statistics, and so on. So it helps you to define the output in this format. The next piece is basically using unambiguous language. What I mean by that is, if you use the term detailed summary, what does detailed summary mean? Detailed means which is long, which has multiple values, and then summary means something which is short and concise. This is ambiguous and conflicting language. We do not want to use this kind of language. This is just going to confuse the AI model. And instead of writing detailed summary, it's much better if you write 100-word summary or 200-word summary, or whatever you want to define it, or 10 bullets summary. That is much more better. The next lesson is basically using a structured framework. Now you will ask me what that means. So in your conversations with ChatGPT, it doesn't really matter a lot because you are just asking it basic questions. But when you are productionizing these AI agents at scale, so you need to know what kind of structure that you want to share with the AI agent. First, you need to define its role and overview, which is basically telling it this is the role. You're a blog writing agent, or you're a research agent, or you are a financial analysis agent. So this way it knows what is the role, and then you give the overview. We are doing this analysis to evaluate our stock performance from the last 1 year. So that is how it knows what you're trying to do, and it creates better outputs. You generally start with overview or the role. Then you go on to instructions, where you tell how they should perform the task. Then you give it the output format, as we saw JSON in our last example right now. Then you give it any additional notes and points to remember, so that it knows, if there are some points that are much more critical, you can actually give it, and it will know how to utilize them and way more importance. So if I have to take my research agents example, you see this is the role and context overview. You're a blog planning expert who handles research and content strategy. You create detailed actionable plans for engaging blog posts. Then I'm giving it instruction. Task 1, analyze the research data, and I'm giving it analyze the data to identify current trends, common pain points, popular questions, and so on. Then I'm actually looking at the content structure, which is the second task, and then again I'm giving a detailed instruction that you have to create an outline that has hook strategy, content flow, section planning, example, engagement, elements, and so on. Then I give it the output requirement, which is basically telling it this response has to be in this structured JSON, and I'm giving it research insights, popular question, pain points, and whatever I need in this proper defined format. I've again given it some writing style guidelines, like make section headings benefit focus, 3 ways to, not types to. Again, as you see here, as I define this, it knows how to create these outlines as well. Plan for conversational, not corporate tone. Include specific examples, not generic advice. So it knows, what are the instructions versus just giving you fluff or generic advice, and so on. And then there are these tools. So basically I asked it to use Google's SERP API, is basically Google Search API tool. So I'm using Google's Search API tool to research about on the web and extract the relevant trends. We'll talk about tools in some time. And then I'm giving the notes, only return the JSON without any extra explanations. So this is to make sure that JSON point or JSON output format is properly emphasized, and it does not return anything else apart from that. So this is how you define a structure of a prompt. The next piece is going to be using the right model, and I'm probably going against general advice, but you should probably use higher and more powerful models like GPT-5 and 5 Pro. Obviously it should make sense for your organization. Now, just to give you an example, this blog writing agent, as you see here, this research and planning agent, it took around 9,000 queries. So 8,311 input and then 712 output, as you see. Now let me just calculate that for both GPT-5 and GPT-5 mini and get back to you. Now, as you see, we had 8311 in input tokens and 712 in output tokens. So I've taken the rates, which is basically 1.25 per million tokens for GPT-5 and 10 million or $10 per million tokens for GPT-5, and then 0.25 and $2 for input and output tokens for GPT-5 mini. Now once you calculate, you will see it's 175 cents, rather $0.0175 and $0.0035. Difference is $0.014. If I have to convert this into cents, this is 1.4, or rather 1.4. Now if you see this is such a minute difference. Remember, this is for a blog post. You are not going to write 3000 blog posts in a month. In a month you are going to write like 100 blog posts max. So even if I multiply this by 100, it is not going to go, or it is going to go somewhere around $1.4. And for a business which writes 100 blog posts every month, they can afford $1.4. And even if I say that you can have an argument that there are 3 nodes, so you have to triple the amount of tokens that you are being utilized, so like the research, polishing and content agent. So even if I multiply it by 3, that is also going to be equal to less than $5 or around $4.2. Now $4.2 are not a big amount, and unless you're processing 1 million or 100,000 queries a month with a model, you should not be worrying about the cost of using the higher end models. Now next is going to be using A/B testing, or basically testing out your prompts with incremental changes. So what you should actually do is, once you write a prompt, run it on few test cases, see the output and see is it the desired output or not, and then keep noting it down, and then keep refining one piece of the prompt, and then improving it incrementally and moving it further and further. If I have to give you an example, this is one of the evaluations I did. So this column is the input column, this is the expected answer or the desired outcome, and then what was the actual answer that I got, and then how are they scored on correctness and helpfulness. So these are just 2 criteria. You can have any criteria. You can even have a hard criteria, whether they match each other word by word. That hard criteria, which is like is A equal to B, may not work in a subjective kind of situation. But let's say if you have a categorization agent which categorizes incoming emails into priority, like low, medium and high priority, there you can actually have that system where you categorize it properly. Now if I have to show you how I did that, again, do not worry about the platform. This is basically an intense evaluation feature. So what I did is I configured these scores so I get helpfulness and correctness of that system, and as you see, these are out of 5. I started with 2.95 and 3.3, and as I kept making improvements on it, you see it kept improving, and I also had some errors, but I tried different things. So when I moved from here to here, I saw some improvement. Again, second to third case, I saw some improvement. This was error, and then when I moved it from here to here, I see a dip. Then I change something else, again I see an improvement. Then I think I changed something again, and this was the best case result. 4.9 and 4.65 out of 5 is absolutely amazing on subjective criteria. And then I kept changing. Oh, okay, this was actually the best result. 4.7 is slightly better here. That is what I'm trying to say. Keep changing one thing at a time, and then seeing how it is impacting. Like change one thing at a time, and then check with test dataset, so that how each change that you make in the prompt is helping your case for the agent or an AI workflow that you have created. The next step or next lesson is going to be using Markdown formatting. Now if I have to just open it on Google, as you see here, there is a hashtag, there is a double hashtag, there is double hashtag, and so on. So if you see on the output side, you see this word mayor, it is actually bold, and then you see this stars at the start or end, this makes it italics, and then we have some features which again are double hashtag, testimonials, and so on. So what it does is it actually tells the AI system or AI that these are important words, these are like headings or subheadings. And if I have to give you an example, this is one of the prompts I written. You see the role, I've given it in Markdown formatting with double hashtag, then overview, then instructions, then notes. All of this is given this way. Even let's say if I have to take this one, this means bold. double star at the start and end, this means bold. So I'm actually highlighting these things and giving it an idea that, these are important points. Make sure of these things. Now, we do not see Markdown formatting here, but when we give it to AI, it is actually kept in, double hashtags, bold or double stars, whatever, double heading, and so on. The next piece is giving them tools. So if I've come to my blog writing agent or workflow, you see this research and planning agent. This is SERP API, which is Google's API, so that it can search using Google search engine. Because LLMs are conversational engines, they are not knowledge bases. They are not knowledge bases. They are conversation engines, right? For them to work properly, you need to give them tools, and Google Search API was just one example. This is a think tool which is very similar to Claude's think mode. It's an N8N feature. You don't need to worry too much about it. Then I've also given it perplexity tool so that it can research with perplexity and get the most accurate results. So this is what I mean by giving them tools. The next piece is basically using multi-agent systems or architecture. So this is not generally used for beginners use case, but if you have a complex task, you should actually break it down. Now, if you actually see this here, I had to write a post. I broke it down into 3 parts. First, you only do research and planning of how the blog post should look like. Then, basis the facts that you researched and the planning that you did, you generate content on it. And then, once you have generated a content, you actually do polishing and finalization of that post. And if I actually have to take a parallel example of this in any blog writing or any media company, what happens? There is researchers, news researchers that are there. Then there are writers which are equivalent to this, and then there are editors which are equivalent to this. So even as if humans we do multi-step, we should also follow the same for our AI agents or AI systems, AI workflows. And sometimes there could be another case where you could do series or parallel. So this was basically series system. You could also have a different mechanism where you do parallel. So what I mean by parallel is you have this which is your input, and then you actually have 3 paths, 1, 2 and 3, which are independently running with each other, and then they collate with 1, and this becomes your output. So these are 3, and then the output is combined, and then you can have the next part going forward after this. So this is again an example of a parallel system. You can have a mix of series and parallel as well, like these 3 could be in parallel and then there could be another in series after combining all of them. The idea is basically break it down into simpler complex tasks which you think are particular to one particular role or type of work, and break it down so that your final task can be constructed. And as I mentioned earlier, like, treat AI like your employee. This is how I think when I have to plan the next system prompt or next AI architecture system, because that is when I can understand, if I had to do it with humans, if I had to hire a team and do it with them, how would I have done with them? If I needed 3 different people, let's say in any tech company or software company, you have designers, you have product managers, you have software developers, and those are also back-end engineers, front-end engineers, mobile developers, web developers, and so on. Even if they break any task into so many pieces, how can I expect AI, which is not to the intelligence of humans at this time, to be able to do that? So even if software teams and big companies break them down into different tasks, I cannot expect the same from AI. I should actually have different ways and emulate the same by creating multi-agent architectures or system for my AI agents. The next is qualify the input. Basically what I mean is garbage in, garbage out. This is the philosophy that you can think of. So whatever kind of prompt you write, if the inputs that you're giving are not right, it is not going to work. Now let's say I want to do a financial analysis of my own business or my own company using AI, and I give it last month's data and I'm asking it to analyze the trends over the last year. Obviously it is not going to be able to do that. Or let's say if I give it the incorrect data, instead of giving the revenue, I give it my cost line items and then I ask it to do revenue projection. That is not going to work out, because no matter how good your prompt is, if your inputs are not good enough, they are not going to work out. The next piece is basically using Playground for doing your testing. So if I go to this one, this is the ChatGPT's consumer model, which we use for free or for paid version. But if I go to platform.openai.chat/edit, we will get this kind of a system. And as you see here, you can actually refine everything. You see, we can refine the model from GPT-5, 4, reasoning to 03, 04, And then we can also define the text format. It can be JSON object, JSON schema that we discussed, reasoning effort, minimal, low, medium, verbosity, summary, and then whether we want to store the logs or not. And these are just couple of parameters. You can also define the variables. Let's say if I want to define city as it suggests, so that whenever I use the term city, I can actually have a dynamic expression like this, so that it knows it's a variable. As you see, it turned green, but as I remove this, it turns white. So that is how you can define the variable as well. Then you can also add and give it some tools, and I'm not going into details of what each tool does, but you know most of them. So that's how you can define these things as well. Now you are seeing developer message, prompt message, user. I'll come to that, but this is how you should do. And then you have the option to compare as well. So let's say I use GPT-5 in 1 and I switch the model to GPT 4.1. Now actually this is sync, so let me just remove this sync and change the temperature of this to, let's say, 2. Now what is temperature? Temperature is basically randomness. Lower temperature results in less random generations, and as it approaches 0, it becomes deterministic and repetitive. So basis the task at hand, you should increase or decrease the temperature of it. Then you can change the max tokens, you can change the top P. It is again word diversity that it changes. Higher top P means model looks at more possible words, making the output more diverse. So it is also similar to temperature, but it is a different kind of dimension. So you change that, and then you actually write your prompt and then compare how your system message should look like and what is the output in both cases. And the last one is basically using different messages. So you see here system message, and then you see here user message, and I can change it to assistant message as well. And there is generally a lot of confusion around these things. So what I can do is give it one system message and multiple or 0 user and assistant messages that you see at this stage. Now what that does is, I'll come back here and I'll explain that properly. So use different messages. So basically imagine a process. How does it happen? You start from an input, then you process in a system, and then you give the output. This is exactly how you should think of in giving different messages. So user is basically, it gives the input. Process is actually equivalent to the system message, and then output is equivalent to the assistant message. So what I mean by that is, if I have to give certain instructions, so how it should process the data. So it can be an example like, take the user's query and write a 100-word article for LinkedIn on that. Then the user query, it can be birds and bees, and then I can say put it in JSON format like this. I can write the query, basically article, and then I can say value of the article, or basically whatever the article is, and then word count, and then I can say 102, or let's say 97, and we will get the value here. Now as you see, this article value is not correct. You will actually have to give it a correct example of an article, and what you can do is basically I'll just copy this, remove this, and then first let me remove this, and then write birds and bees, and then get the answer from here. And once it does, I will use the same assistant example to add the query. Now I'll just add the message, copy paste this value, and let me just paste this here. So as you see, articles, example is here, word count 97. Again, I have not counted it, this is just a hypothetical number, and then this gives it a reference that when I have written birds and bees, this is the kind of output you give. You can also add more user messages, more assistant messages, where let's say you say universe, and then you can run it here and actually add that back in the assistant message. Now there is going to be some bit of confusion, because in some places you can actually define the output format in the system prompt as well. That is not what I'm trying to talk about here. This is the same as giving it examples, and they are sometimes also referred to as zero shot prompting, or one shot prompting, or few shot prompting. Zero shot prompting means zero example, one shot means one examples, and few shot means more than one. So you should, any case scenario, give at least one example for your prompts in either the system message or using the user and assistant message to give it an idea of how they look like. And you can actually do it directly here as well. So if I have to open this structure system prompt, you will see that I have given it examples. Example 1, what is the input query, what is the output, and then what is the expected output. Example 2, input and expected output. So that is how you can define it as well. That's it from my side on prompt engineering lessons for today. And if you want to watch more content like this, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and share it with a friend who is working on a new AI agent system. And if you want to get all of these notes for yourself, what you gotta do is come to my school community. Link is going to be in the description. Come to the YouTube resources section and then search for the relevant video. So let's say if I have to take this video, what I can do is come here and see it is all in the format of a zip, and you can download it and get it for yourself. I'll export this file and you can use it by yourself. And that's it from my side. Hope you have a great day and see you in the next video.